Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We broadcast 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. And we've been doing it for almost 10 years. Rick Miller's been with us almost all that time. I want to thank Rick for being with us. I want to thank Jason for being our engineer. He's an engineer on USA Prepares Monday through Friday. And that's something that's a nice treat, because it used to be that we'd have different engineers every day. And now we've been assigned a steady engineer. Now, not that the other engineers aren't fabulous, they are. But Jason has been promoted, or maybe demoted, to the USA Prepares. And we really appreciate that, Ted Anderson and Jason. If you've got a topic and you'd like to, or if you're on topic and you'd like to give us a call, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line if you'd like to call and listen. Provided by Global Star, 712-770-9418. 712-770-9418. I'm Vincent Finelli. We're glad you're here. Thank you for being here. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Welcome, Rick.
Welcome, Vincent. Thank you for being on the air with me. I just, as I went on, have now realized one of my most serious problems going on. There was an individual, I just got the email, so now I know what's going on. I'm being profiled by something, and I'm being nudged by something, and I have no clue, but I need grace to call Julie now and get briefed. I need other people in my attempts to send email before we just went on the air. That's essential. Okay, moving forward. There was an individual up in Canada who was harassing me for more than 2 years as a stalker. And we ignored him for 2 years. And that means there was no input to him to keep him going for every day for 2 years. And so he had no idea whether he was affecting me or not. It just happened. Then it got to the point where he started threatening me, and then he started threatening my girlfriend. When he did that, I made a call to California of a friend of mine who had retired as a L.A. detective. He personally, helping me, went up to Canada, talked with the Royal Mounted Police, and that individual had broken federal laws and went to prison. Apparently, he's out as of last night, because I just got an email last night after I'm in bed. That means I didn't see it until the moment I'm about to go on radio with you. His brother lives somewhere in Olympia, Washington, and writes algorithms for Abbotsford. That's all I'm going to say about that. If anybody got what I just said, I need help right now. We've been trying to get Albert Schweitzer University off the ground since Beltane, May 1st. We've had hacks after hacks. Okay. My email on Site 5, which is Northwest Botanical, different than my website, which is now Squarespace, has been attacked, and we discovered 26 Chinese names that were associated and commingled with my email, that one of which was part of that Cincinnati bust 4 nights ago. That big sting on Chinese intelligence trying to go through old military computers looking for secret documents. That happened, literally. I don't know that they're related to Squarespace. What we were supposed to do back in February was move my old website, richardalanmiller.com, from Bluehost over to Squarespace. I did not authorize that, but it happened, and so I went along with it. I wanted GoDaddy. I was told by my brand new webmaster that it is not as good a site as Squarespace, and that I wanted to do this. I never wanted Gmail. I never wanted YouTube. I'm on YouTube. They're all compromised, as you may or not know, and I'm under such serious attack. This morning, I woke up overwhelmed, and I threw up. Now, I don't know that it's an AI. I don't know that it's a human being. I have evidence to indicate that we are most likely under attack. Last week, my third attempt to put a video together, it not only was that attacked a third time, but our backup, which was unconnected to the computer and all of that, was lost. And then when we tried to upload on a different computer, the download library, which is 20,000 things, that damaged hard drive. It did a bunch of things that we do not yet understand. And last night I was supposed to make a video, and I was just too bad to do. I'm not thinking through it. I couldn't do it, and so I'm going to have to do it today. And I've got volunteers from all over the world now wanting to help me. It's too much for me, and I'm getting sick. I ended up doing class 1, which didn't happen right with no video to explain things. Class 2 is now up and ready for download, but that video is broken. Class 3 is what I was supposed to be preparing for this Friday. By the way, Class 1 was how to build an aquaculture system for children, and it's an excellent video. It's available on my YouTube channel. If you go to Richard Allen Miller and go to YouTube, you'll see it down at the bottom. It shows you how to build an aquaculture system for nothing and by children. And what I did for that class was discuss the distinction between hydroponics, aquaculture, and dirt, and their advantages and disadvantages. And the meta part is growing earth element. I'm going to do water next, and then air. The earth, but without soil. That's the meta part of it for children. Last week's class was called the Herbal Pharmacy, What to Grow First. This week was supposed to be the salad bowl, and I'm dead stop. You know, the salads that you grow before you do vegetables and other things. And I'm talking about all the different kinds of salads for children to understand. While I'm doing all of this, I'm not trying to teach. Teaching is the way we do children today. I have been 50 years into teaching. Mike Mandeville was my roommate when he did his doctoral thesis on the experimental college, which later became continuing education across the nation. Then, when Dixie Lee Ray retired from the Atomic Energy Commission, she sanctioned and became governor of the state of Washington. She sanctioned the formation of Evergreen College, which now is a university in Olympia, Washington. I was first faculty and have had such students as Jeffrey Mishlove and Fred Allen Wolf and other very famous people now that have gone out and done their own things in physics. I taught shamanism, parapsychology, and witchcraft. Today, I am under attack, very similar to what happened when Aaron Dakin retired. Joyce Riley. Joyce Riley had called Matt Stein the night before he and I were going to do a workshop in Hollywood. That's exactly the same time I was attacked with Amazon. And you did something with Sam Bushman. But Joyce Riley said to Matt the night before we were going to do the workshop that if you do anything with Richard Miller, you are never going to be on my radio show again. Now, that caused a schism, not between Matt and I, but between a bunch of people. They think that I'm a Satanist. They think that I'm trying to teach children. I'm not. Everybody that has listened to me and you in all your years, do I seem like I'm a bad person?
Is that a rhetorical question? Are you actually asking me?
Well, am I a bad person in your humble eyes? I mean,
Are you going out and maliciously doing damage? No.
Do you think I'm doing anything that's trying to hurt everything? I'll tell you what happened. I have access to a thing called Project Looking Glass. And it says if I'm allowed to do what I'm doing, the children that I'm teaching right now, their children will never experience a war again. I have no idea what that, they're going to have their own problems, but they'll never experience war again. And I don't know if that's true or not. Project Looking Glass is not even as accurate as Edgar Cayce, so there it is. But that's what's happening. And I just got a notice from this guy that got stuck in Canadian prison. Apparently he's out, threatening me again on email this moment. I don't know what's going on. I do know that my computers are acting funny. I know that around my friendships are all acting funny. So I made a call out for help. Dr. Norm Shealy was the one that called me, and he's called me several times, and I'm so grateful to have known this man for his help. I don't know whether he can help me or not, but one of his friends that he recommended, I called him. We're now going to talk again later today, I hope, Dr. Scott Ashkenazi. And Ashkenazi, apparently, he and his wife formed a grief center or something, and he's a microbiologist, I think. That's what I'm doing today, is trying to get more information on who he is. Now, one of my old students, Dana Evans, is now back in touch with me. She's retired Air Force. She was a student of mine when, back 30 years ago, I did IES, Interactive Educational, and was the first classes online with computers when PC Link became AOL. And now I'm trying to do something else, but rather than teach children, I'm trying to show up and with all of my resources on how to put a herbal pharmacy together, giving them those resources and then fielding their questions and where they want to go. And the secret lesson of that was last week, was synchronicity. When a child chooses a given herb for a specific reason, that was their homework, and then another child chose the same herb for his reason, and then what happens when that child interfaces with the other child and they're teaching themselves by using my information as limited. And that's what I'm trying to do now. It's a new concept in the way we approach our children, that they are smarter than we are, and it is my humble opinion that I am, because I'm so experienced on what I can't do, that's my limitation.
All right, we're going to be right back with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Trevor is on the line from New York. Trevor, you'll be on next. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. Trevor in New York, welcome.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for having me on.
Sure.
I would like to start with apologizing for not following through with my man on the street.
Vincent, I need to interrupt. I cannot understand anything being said right now with my phones. I can't understand what he's saying. I can't understand you for volume. I need help here.
Okay, let's see. Jason, can you turn that pot up a little bit more? Okay, it's in Jason's hands.
He sounds like he's in a tunnel.
Okay, well, he's absolutely crystal clear to me. So it's on your end, Rick.
You just went fuzzy on me.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be.
I'm giving you the truth. Something else is going on here. I can't understand what's being said right now. Sorry.
I believe it. I'm looking. Give me just 1 second here, Trevor.
Yes, sir.
You've gone fuzzy on me. So you were clearer, and he was in a tunnel. Now something else has changed.
All right. So I'm looking at the meters. It looks like everything is just perfect on my end, and it looked like Trevor was just perfect as well. I can see through meters the quality, and it looks perfect. Well, Trevor, why don't you continue, and maybe Jason can adjust the controls to give Rick a little more amplitude.
Because I can't understand him. Thank you. Yeah.
Go ahead, Trevor.
So I'm sure you all are aware of the situation on the street. So I guess that's a bit of a moot point at this point. But I'd like to talk about certain individuals, groups, persuasions that you cannot, say, talk about. Is that okay?
Yeah, as long as you don't mention them. Well, here's why. Trevor, let me tell you this. I used to do a broadcast with Erin Dakins, and she and I were on the air, and we were thrown off the air. While live.
What happened to Erin? Because I really liked her, but it felt like she was in the middle of something, and I don't understand.
Well, here's what I can tell you, and I don't know much. I have been calling them for years. Her husband, Brad, I mean, you met Brad. He was here at the farm with Erin. She, when we had an expo, and we had a whole house full of people, and it was wall to wall. And so I know Erin pretty well, and we'd broadcasted for years together, and I have not been able to get a telephone call through to her for probably 3 or 4 years now. They do not.
And what happened to Joyce Riley and Sam Bushman? Sam Bushman is apparently back on the air.
Well, I don't think he's ever left the air, but I'll tell you this. Since you mentioned, Trevor, if you just hold with us, will you be able to go through the bottom of the hour break?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So Rick asked about Sam Bushman. I don't really like talking about other broadcasters, but I will because you mentioned it, and I did not want to leave the class hanging with what we're talking about. So USA Prepares originates at Genesis Communications Network. Other networks have picked us up. Other radio stations have picked us up, and they don't pay us. They just broadcast our feed, and they typically delete some commercials, and insert their own. And they like us because of our content. That being said, AM, FM radio stations, other networks pick us up. And Ron Gibson, with my permission, picks us up and puts us on YouTube. So Sam Bushman picked us up, and he liked our content and would delay play USA Prepares or live play it. And he called me one day, and he said, you need to limit some of your instructors, specifically Richard Allen Miller, Norm Shuley, and, you have them on too much. They need to go. And I said no.
Okay.
That
and
like what Duncan Rhodes did for me. He defended anybody that writes for Duncan. He defends them. I mean that loyalty and all of that. But thank you for being my friend. But I wished I had been able to talk to you for the last 3 weeks. You have no idea what I've been going through.
Actually, I do, Rick. I have been. Rick, our farm is under siege. We are literally.
What did I do? What's going on? And this guy, and Eric DeHammer, some other people have called me. There's an individual, and I don't know who it is, but now I've got this stalker that went to prison, who is apparently now out. That was 2 years ago. And he was up in Canada. He broke federal laws in Canada and the U.S., and they stuck him in jail because my friend went up to talk directly to the Royal Mounted Police. They stung him and put him in. His brother.
Rick, hold that thought. We're going into a break, and Trevor, please stay with us. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. Trevor is with us from New York. And so, Rick, you mentioned Sam Bushman a couple times. Sam Bushman's a broadcaster.
And Joyce Riley.
And Sam Bushman and Joyce Riley were working together. Sam Bushman was under there was an arrangement with Joyce, and he did work for Joyce Riley, and he was compensated for that work. And part of that work included writing a piece about Dr. Richard Allen Miller and publishing it on his website, Sam Bushman's website. And this was years ago. And that piece was, in my terms, a hit piece on Dr. Richard Allen Miller, describing that you were a personality, a public personality, a radio personality, and that you didn't have the credentials that you claimed that you had. And I'm paraphrasing. And that was to be exposed. And it's something that you talked about on USA Prepares and delineated exactly what your experiences were and why you have your degree that you have. And so Sam told me that he wanted me to limit your appearances on USA Prepares from 2 hours a week to 1 hour a month at the most. And you were in good company because Dr. Norman Shealy was in the same recommendation, meaning limit him as well. And I said, and so Sam wanted me to do an interview with him on the air about this hit piece. And it was an attack on Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And I refused to do it. I said, absolutely not, I'm not going to do it. And he was very persistent. He would not give up. And this was many phone calls over a period of days. And I was sent the copy of this, we'll call it a hit piece. Those are my terms. And I said, so is this a problem for you because USA Prepares is replayed on your network, Sam Bushman? Is that what this is all about? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, take me off your network. You no longer have permission for USA Prepares to be on your network. Take us off your network. And that was the end of it. And I have not had any need to talk to Sam Bushman for years about this. And this keeps resurfacing. I don't know, every year or so it just pops up. And so that's what happened. But Joyce Riley was behind it. Sam wrote the hit piece. Sam, it was read on the air on Joyce Riley's show, I believe. And
why did she have me on her show earlier? And why did she have Matt Stein? And why did she call Matt Stein to threaten him when we did Hollywood? And why was Amazon at the same moment started publishing all of my books by other people, where I lost income and I went from being a normal income and surviving as a retired. I'm 76 now. I have 4 PhDs right now from credible universities, including Eric Fromm, now honorary ones, given me to stop this nonsense because of my education. The problem is, it never had a problem. Nobody has a problem with my information. And then, less than 2 weeks ago, we started experiencing serious disruption on trying to start a new concept in education for children and empowering children. And who would want to stop something like that? We don't know. We don't know why it's happening. But
come on.
This morning, I throw up. It's been 4 weeks now since Beltane, when I tried to... Beltane, by the way, everybody understands, that's when they turn the water ditches on for farming. That's been a thing when I started my bookstore to do my studies with the military, because they wanted me to do studies in areas where you couldn't find the books. And so I opened a bookstore to allow me to have access to rare manuscripts, of which now I have 20,000 rare manuscripts and Bibles that I have accrued over 30 years of teaching metaphysics that has been accredited at such universities as Harvard. And accredited. John Mack was the one that took my 3rd course of 11 that I taught, and then started alien abduction studies. Now, I've never had any problem in that arena, but now it's surfaced again in an area trying to stop me. And then last night, after I was in bed, I got my threat from this kid that has been put in federal prison. And so I see a thread going here that is persistent, and it's a cult thread, because guess what, guys? When you talk black and white, and Eastern philosophy talks in terms of yin within the yang, neither are correct any more than physics and religion as 2 brains in your brain. That's what the limitation of physics and religion are about, is that you have choice and you are able to decide for yourself, and everybody's different. And by the way I'm telling it to the children is all roads, anything you do leads to Rome, but you need a North Star to know which direction you're going in. And that's what I'm trying to, I don't understand. Most of all of us know that we're going somewhere and in our mind's eye. But I'm suggesting that you don't know which direction unless you have a reference. That's why Walt Disney did a circle around himself. That's why you wrap yourself with white light. Everything inside is you. Everything outside is not you. And you talk to yourself. You do not talk to Ouija boards unless you have some kind of reference on where that information is coming from. And that's one of the first lessons I'm trying to teach children.
Rick,
and I can't teach, so I'm trying to, how do I give it to them that they understand that no matter what they come up with is correct, way more than I am, because they're way smarter than I am. And what limits me is my vast amount of knowledge, which, by anyone's definition, is illusion. In the tree of life, there's only one place where knowledge becomes wisdom, and that's after Christ consciousness moving to God consciousness through the Sea of Kalansan, known as Dath, D-A-A-T-H. Now, I don't understand what's going on, but I'm sick, and I don't want to give up, because according to some of my friends, this may empower children like not Cloud Atlas and not my vision, because it's evolving. But I'm learning. This lesson tomorrow was going to be on the salad bowl, and I had an epiphany talking about synchronicity, where one child dialogues with another, and they see the difference between themselves, and that's where the magic's going to happen.
All right, let's put this topic on.
That's where the new direction in teaching is going to occur, is they're going to teach themselves, and we're just facilitators of some kind, knowing what we can't do. And the child doesn't know that, and they're going to make discovery that we never even dreamed of.
Let's put that on hold for a minute. Trevor, let's get back to you.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
So why don't we start with learn who you cannot criticize, and then you'll find out who's in charge. That's Mr. Michael Rivera over there. I think this is along the lines of who we can't criticize and why. And well, let's just say that I'm prepared to say that 1984 was a blueprint more than a warning, and we're controlled by a cult in the Middle East. Technology and politics is compromised at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
I think, Dr. M, you've stepped on some toes, and you're messing with somebody's income, with their capital, and that's why they're stamping you out. Dr. Shealy, the same thing with medical knowledge. They don't have someone to treat if they're healthy all the time, so they want to stamp out this. These people might be compromised, that you mentioned. They might have ties with some unsavory folks in the middle.
Do you know what the coronavirus has brought positive to our culture? The first thing I noticed was personal space at the post office and in stores, where you can no longer crowd in tight lines pushing each other. And that's something that should have happened a long time ago. And so yesterday, when I went to the post office and my store, I gave all of those people that are on the front lines of battle right now, that's your new war zone. I gave them free access, to my course. Anybody that's on the front lines, I don't care about the money. What I care about is giving you access to this information for your own decision. Choice. That's what made us God's favorite.
Hey, Vincent, you were talking with Doc Shealy about micronutrients Monday,
yes.
I wanted to let you know that if you guys needed some sulfur, you can go to the Clinton house. I'm sure they got enough between the two of them. Some sulfur, some brimstone.
In reality, I was able to buy some sulfur and elemental sulfur.
Don't they call it in the old pharmacy rose sulfur? Rose and sulfur.
This is elemental sulfur, and I'm going to broadcast it on our garden if it doesn't rain today. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk to Rick about, was the micronutrients in the soil, which ones he recommends. Trevor, I appreciate that. What have you found as a man on the street in New York?
Oh, it's terrible. From the national grid price increase all the time, every year, just everything seems to go up. The politics get grimier and grimier. As you can see, I mean, Schumer there, he's from Utica, which isn't too far away, and he's a dirtbag. No, I can't say, there's going to be profanity after that. I can't really say anything nice about the guy. They're sellouts, and they conform to that little cult that I was mentioning earlier. That's what it seems like to me, is that they're not loyal to America anymore. We feel that.
Okay, so I know some of these people, yeah. And I mentioned it this way on the air. So if someone were to ask me, so what, Vinny, what are you? I would say I'm an American, and they would say, no, that's not what I mean. So what's your heritage? I would say, well, both sides would be Italian. My grandparents were born in Italy, both sides, all four of them. Some people cling to a religion first rather than a country of origin. So I'm an American. I speak English. My loyalty is to the United States of America.
And your
first.
freedom.
Okay, first.
Of choice.
Of course, there's honesty and integrity that's in there too. But it is not a religion or a belief system to conquer the world.
Yeah.
My country does not have a plank or series of planks to conquer the world through taking over education, taking over finance, taking over the political system, the government system, the educational system, the medical system, the media system. Okay.
All the computers.
But there is a book called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, and they have those planks. So, class, if you want to learn something, you can go to YouTube while it's still available, and you can type in the word synagogue. You can type in the word of, and you can type in the word Satan, and you can sit down with a cup of coffee, and your jaw will drop. I just went to an internet website, and this is a website that relates to radio broadcasts. And it says that it has terms and conditions. And if you want to know about the terms and conditions of using the website, you can click on a tab and you can read it. So I clicked on it. I copied the whole document, terms and conditions. It's over 3,000 words. Over 3,000 words as a viewer of a website that deals with radio broadcasts. Now, that should be quite startling. Why? Why are there over 3,000 words in terms and conditions about what is happening with you and this website? Why would there be 3,000 words? So, if you think that the media is not controlled, you are mistaken. Trevor, what other things have you seen as a man on the street, in stores, people walking around, congregating? Are you seeing people liking the fact that they're getting free money, allegedly? I mean, inflation.
Oh, yeah.
Inflation money.
Half of them, they get that it's not good because they're going to see the prices increase in 3 months. And the other half are, oh, wow, this is great. I want to go back. I don't want to deal with the problems I had before. But it's, you got to face these things. I'm going back to work tomorrow, but it's not for what I was just doing. I lost my job as a locksmith. And I was learning so much, and I have to go back to culinary. I don't even know how that's going to pan out. So,
let me ask you a quick couple questions about locksmiths. I made a set of lockpicks back in the 1970s, and in Missouri it's perfectly legal to own lockpicks. Do you have any information you'd like to share about lockpicks?
I don't want to teach the wrong. Let me put it this way: I don't want to give a child a baseball bat without them knowing it's deadly in a sense that you could hurt somebody. It's a fun game to play, and you can help a lot of people with locksmithing. But I recommend doing your own research when it comes to it. Have good intentions whilst researching it.
I agree.
And you should take it as I did when culinary came around. They said you got to take a chef's oath. Would you serve it to your mother? You have to have honor with everything you do when it comes to cooking. Just like in locksmithing, you're there to protect and serve, basically, literally. We're dealing with safes and such. So you have to, think of it as your aunt, your cousin. You're helping people that could be your family members.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reason I made a set of lockpick tools was because I own some locks that I can't get into. I've inherited locks that I can't get into. I've inherited equipment that has locks on it that I couldn't get into, and so it's for my own purposes. I don't go around burglarizing, but it's for my purposes.
Yeah, I could take a paper clip and call it a lockpick. I mean, you could have an obscure piece of metal, and they could say that whatever it is, but you could say no, it's a back scratcher.
Right.
I scratch my back with it.
Well, the point is, class, I think you should consider learning if you have situations like we have. Like, for example, we have a backhoe, and the key broke. I needed to use the backhoe. Well, I had a set of lockpicks, and I was able to make my own key, a temporary key for a couple seconds so that I could use my backhoe. So there are a lot of reasons to have them.
Yep.
But none of them in my world concern crime. They're for my own purposes. It's like having the keys or a spare set of keys. That's what it is to me. So you can look that up if you want. What else are you seeing on the street, Trevor? Are you seeing people are more angry?
Yeah, the jobs are leaving. They love the money coming in, but they see all the places closing. JCPenney's, they see all these retailers going away that were iconic. Sears, they already had a knife in their back, but now they're just getting dirt thrown on their head. Everything's just gone. Everything's gone away, and it's bad. It's not good. I can't say anything good about the situation.
Okay, I'm finding that people. Rick mentioned it. Friends are less friendly. They're getting funny, and I don't mean humor. They're becoming flaky. They're becoming situational friends, or it depends kinds of friends. Whatever happened to the way it used to be, where a friend was a friend, through thick and thin? It's more like It's more like what we were talking about with that radio broadcaster who turned against Rick. I mean, what the heck was that all about?
It's the culture, the rotten culture.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to share with us, Trevor?
Yeah, look up the USS Liberty, 1967. Find out who our allies are in the Middle East. And Godspeed, class. Godspeed. Yeah, God bless.
The USS Liberty was attacked by Israel. It was strafed.
Strafed.
Huh. Yeah, and we did nothing about it to protect our men on that ship. Nothing.
You don't say. Huh.
Is that true?
I believe so. I think you are saying something true there, Ben.
Absolutely. All right. We'll be right back. Thanks for calling in, Trevor. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. I just want to thank Rich Sheben for filling in for me, guest hosting several times. I really appreciate that. As I mentioned, our farm is under siege. And there are a lot of things that I have to do. And, there are people who are gaining weight as a result of the corona panic, and that's not happening at our house. Everybody's losing weight. We don't even get 3 meals a day anymore. It's 2 meals a day, and breakfast is somewhere around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and dinner is somewhere.
Can I add something here on this topic?
In just a second, please.
Okay.
And dinner is somewhere around 7, 8, or 9 o'clock at night. I have not been able to answer the phone. I have not been able to make telephone calls. I've not been able to be available. So I wanted to thank Rich Sheben for keeping the seat warm here at USA Prepares. while our farm is under siege. I didn't really want to get into why our farm is under siege, but it has been very, very difficult for us. We had agreements with other farmers where we would take care of their farms in return for receiving their grass, and the plug was pulled, and we lost so much acreage of grass that we had to fire sale 70% of our cows, which we have done. And it was excruciating. It was a tearjerker, building a herd and having it destroyed because of the greed, the sick, senseless greed by the synagogue of greed. And it just, people who squander their money recklessly, frivolously, carelessly, and then because of their carelessness and their recklessness and their greed, then cause downstream problems that affect us because of their carelessness and recklessness.
This is important. May I say something now?
Sure.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. The original concept of 3 meals a day, this is something I'm teaching children in the salad bowl, was from India, where the ox god told the ox god that man needed to eat only once every 3rd day. And the reason the ox god was made a beast of burden, this is mythology now, going way, way back into history, is because the ox god accidentally told man it wasn't needing to eat once every 3rd day, but eating 3 times a day. In fact, one of the metaphors I'm going to attempt to try to give to children is the fact that certain foods are better taken without other foods, that you eat certain kinds of enzymes differently than you do micronutrients. You have different ways. And the way animals, many of them do it, is by grazing all day long. And that the 3 meals a day was why God then punished the ox god and made it a beast of burden, even though it was a god, to serve man. And that's why in the Hindu religion, the ox is considered sacred, and yet it is a beast of burden to serve man. And then I would go into why you eat certain nutrients differently than you would eat other nutrients, because they counteract because of the gut and the microbiology that's going inside the gut with the hierarchy of the enteric nervous system. If you do observe these new concepts, what happens next is that you absorb the foods better when you take them separately instead of all at once in a meal. And that's why China today, for example, eats their dessert before they start their meal. It doesn't mean you want to do that, but it's a knowledge base I know that may want to be integrated into your own understanding of what you're doing to yourself. That's how I hope to teach children without teaching them. Letting them know what I know in my knowledge base, like mythology, and why we do things a certain way in America that may want to be revisioned, and the way we individually serve meals.
I thought that the Chinese ate their dessert before their meal is because they want to make sure that they get to eat their dessert, because when America... Wait a minute.
That's one way.
Wait a minute.
That's one way of looking at it.
Well, no, hang on.
You can also say desserts are mostly sugar, which, by the way, is a type of drug, just like alcohol and tobacco. And why now, in Oregon at least, 1/4 of all population here is obese.
I thought that it was because the Chinese are figuring out that when America finally realizes how much damage the Chinese have done with the coronavirus to America, that we're going to pummel them. And I don't know why we haven't turned them into glass yet.
I'm going to say this about that. Rather than be negative on China I'm going to be my glasses half full and see the fact that now you understand why you want to do the herbal pharmacy first is because even back when I was farming in the 90s, and I would do feverfew for Centrum, as it was shipped to China, tableted, encapsulated, and shipped back to the United States because it was cheaper for Costco to carry Centrum like that, even though I was growing the pharmaceutical. And that's the other lesson I was trying to teach China, is that at some point your pharmacy is no longer going to be available at Walgreens or Walmart or other pharmacy stores, that you're going to have to rely on your own. Page 2 on that is, rather than targeted chemistry, where you do standardized extract and specific chemistry, that nature somehow has already figured out that when you take aspen leaf and aspen bark, not only do you get acetylsalicylic acid, you also get the natural buffers, unrelated, that are necessary to protect you from getting sick from taking aspirin. And page 7, this is the kind of lessons I'm trying to present to children so that then they network with each other and do something magical called synergy. And synergy is the lesson I'm going to be taught last week. Basically, is the secret lesson to the children, where basically it was a Carl Jung concept that was integrated by Buckminster Fuller and now is used as an algorithm in artificial intelligence. That's what I'm doing with Albert Schweitzer University. And someone and something is trying to stop me, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm worn out. I need help. I need volunteers. If this gets off the ground, it will take on a life that is nothing about me. I don't care about that. What I care about is our children are our single most important natural resource, and what happened this year is that they were sent home 2 months early from school, and there's a likelihood school will not open in the fall. What are those children going to do at home without any kind of education other than Howdy Doody or Mickey Mouse? And that's why I'm doing an online university for children. And meta means it goes beyond the physical. Metaphysics means, like, for example, on the element Earth, is growing without soil. And the first job I had out of graduate school was Lunar Base Alpha 1 with Boeing. And I worked under Art Pilgrim, where we were a closed system. And all your inorganic salts can come from 1/3 chicken manure, 1/3 rabbit manure, and 1/3 worm casing. If you have that, you have a closed system for growing anything, anywhere, underground, in space, locked down on your own property, etc. And what I did was chose aquaponics because it's cheaper to build, and that's a closed system. It does it without soil, and will you see what's happening? I'm growing tomato plants next to it on dirt, and I'm showing the difference of the advantages and disadvantages of growing these plants with and without soil, and why you want to consider the options. And again, it's about choice.
You mentioned the children, what's going to happen to them when there's no school.
Well, then what's happening to them now?
I think it's great. I think it's great that there's no school. And I'll tell you why. If parents had paid attention in the past, they would have been smart enough to buy some books. And they could have bought books at fire sale prices, 10 cents on the dollar, at the most, for quality books. People were throwing away books. People were giving books away to Goodwill and organizations like that. And so you could buy a brand new book that's never used, a hardcover book, for $3.95 shipped. And most of that is the cost of the shipping, that $3.95. Fabulous books, and they could be used to teach the children. That's what could be happening right now. Right now, both Grace Thorne and Mitzi Shimizu are both registered in this thing. They're trying to help me on other levels because, like when you and I interviewed those children on national radio, where they were able to ask questions they could not ask their librarian,
That is the kind of thing that Albert Schweitzer University is now trying to provide as an online university for children like Harry Potter. The thing is, I don't want to teach these children. What I want to do is empower them. And when you give them empowerment, look what they can do without us. It's unbelievable. They're smarter than we are. They're not geniuses. They're super geniuses. And our school systems, as we do it now, one size does not fit all, any more than it does in medicine. What's healthy for one person is not for another. And there are many, many different forms of intelligence. And I am the first to acknowledge that. And what I'm trying to do, I don't know how yet, is work in the moment and let them be empowered using synergy as the first lesson I'm really trying to teach them, how to network with themselves.
Rick, I mentioned a few times over the years that my dad was a school principal in the public school system. And he realized when he got his first school in the 1950s that students were grouped by the number of days they were alive on the planet. So based on your birthday, you were put in a class, first grade, second grade, et cetera. And he took all the grades out of his school, and he grouped the students by how quickly they learned and how much they knew, regardless of how many days on the planet they were alive. And so he saw that was what was the best way to go, and he implemented it. He was the first in the country to do that.
That's why I want you to be Dumbledore.
Well, and anyway, but my dad saw that, but he's the only one that saw it. And when he left that school system, the guy that followed him took it apart, put it back the way it was, grouped by days on the planet. So a couple of years ago, I had a chance to review an employment dossier on one of our instructors. His name is Rich Sheben. So I sat down at my desk, my studio desk, and I went through this dossier, and it was probably over 100 pages. I'm thinking the file was inch to an inch and a half thick, and 8.5 by 11 documents, awards, performance reviews, performance appraisals for years. And I sat down for a couple hours and I read this dossier. And I want to tell you that I was really impressed. It was exemplary. It was like the who's who of a pharmaceutical representative. So I read his employment history for years. And that's Rich Sheben. And I just want to say that I know who he is. I appreciate who he is. And that's why he's able to come on the air and just fill in for me at a moment's notice. So thank you, Rich Sheben. I really appreciate that. I want to address something that Trevor said. He called in from New York. And he mentioned the USS Liberty. Now, in 1967, during the Six-Day War, the USS Liberty was attacked. It was called a Navy technical research ship. And it was attacked by the Israeli Air Force, jet fighters, and Israeli Navy motor torpedo boats attacked it. It was strafed. It was shot at. It was surrounded. And I believe there were some helicopters involved. And it was clearly identified as a United States ship. It was in international waters. And for quite a long period, this ship was under siege by the Israeli military. 171 crew members were wounded. The ship was severely damaged, and 34 were killed. That's U.S. naval officers and seamen, and 2 Marines and 1 civilian were killed. And it was attacked by the Israeli military in 1967. The ship radioed for help and got no help by the United States. Now, as a result, Israel apologized for the attack, saying that the USS Liberty had been attacked in error. Mistaken for an Egyptian ship. The Israeli government and the United States government conducted an inquiry or inquiries about it. And it was concluded that the ship's identity was uncertain. And those who have survived the attack disagree and maintain the attack was deliberate. As a result, the Israeli government paid about $3 million to the U.S. government in compensation for the families of the 34 men killed in the attack. And it paid an additional $3 million to $3.5 million to those who have been wounded. That's the USS Liberty. That's the incident that Trevor was talking about. Tomorrow, I'll be on the air with Kathy in Ohio. We're going to be talking about tips and canning. And I think it's absolutely critical that you learn about canning. And after that, we're going to be talking about appliances with Kevin in Florida. Appliance tips. And I'm going to be sharing in both hours tips from my book. Rick, you were mentioning gardening and micronutrients. So I want to apply sulfur this afternoon right after the broadcast to the garden. I'm going to rototill it in again. We have literally probably 2,000 pounds or more of biochar that's in our garden already. What
biochar,
other
in your mind, is what? Let's start there, and I'm asking you a question. What do you think biochar is and is not? Let's start there.
All right. To me, biochar is the result of unburned hardwood. From our farm, we heat with wood, and some of the embers, if you will, that are unburned are chunks the size of
activated charcoal.
Yeah, activated charcoal.
What is activated charcoal to you?
Well, it's not activated. This would be just charcoal. We'll be right back. We'll talk more about it. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and Rick asked me a question about biochar. So biochar, to me, is, and here's how I make it. We have an outdoor wood stove. It has a 4 foot by 4 foot by 5 foot firebox, and it's airtight. And so I can control the amount of air that goes into the firebox or the combustion chamber. And I burn the wood that's in there, which is hardwoods, very slowly to extract the maximum amount of heat out of them. And sometimes I need to empty the firebox, and it takes a while with a big shovel because there's a lot of ash in there. And the pile of ash that we have is the size that a commercial dump truck would dump out of, like if you had a delivery of a stone for your driveway, like an 18-ton truck. That's how big this pile is, minimum. And so it's a lot of biochar, and it is the unburned result of biomass that has been heated. And it has billions of little tiny pores in it. It is.
Do you understand what carbon is?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Because you're talking old school. You're talking 1920s technology, and today.
That's where I am.
No. I'm going somewhere. And while you were doing that, because I know what you're doing, I'm trying to respond to a person volunteering that I don't know, and I don't know what to do, so I'm typing while I'm listening to you, believe it or not, and something is causing my cursor to jump around so that I can't type. Now, activated charcoal is unburned carbon, like you said, that is now what we call C60 or C120, a buckyball. It is uniquely different in carbon than any other form of carbon, just like molecules like water, carbon and oxygen, hydrogen and oxygen have H3O2, H2O, deuterium. Did you know, for example, today, we know that the sea between New Zealand and Antarctica is almost pure deuterium. Did you know that? No, you didn't. Nobody does.
Well,
And
wait a
that's
minute. Yes, I did, because you've said it many times.
Well, but that doesn't mean I'm right. What I'm trying to say something. I am trying to give my knowledge base to everybody, and I'm being interfered with on areas and levels I don't understand. Is that me blocking myself? Probably. We fight ourselves many, many times, and we blame it on Rio. I don't know what's going on with Aaron Dakin and Sam Bushman. I don't know what this guy that got out of prison is all related. He's just a stalker. What I do know is that my computer and my mouse and my brand new keyboard are now acting funny. I bought 2 keyboards, one from Weimar. I had to return it. It was broken. I went to Fred Meyer, bought a brand new keyboard. It was broken. I went back there yesterday, and they swapped it, but they didn't have any keyboards. Why? Because of the coronavirus, and it all coming from China. And so I got an upgrade, cost me another $20, and I haven't even installed it yet. And yet, an older keyboard that worked fine is now not. How does that work? I don't know. There are too many variables for me to figure it out. And the guy that got out that's sending me the stalking again this morning for the first time, his brother writes algorithms for D-Wave technology. Now, I don't know what's going on. And I'm not going to blame it on Rio like I would normally have done in the past, because I realize that while something else is going on, and I'm trying to pass solid information on micronutrients like mineral 72. There are 72 known minerals that are activated in a way like carbon is, that will be absorbed by plants differently than fertilizer. Page 17 on that. It turns out that I can't ever get across my information because something doesn't want that to happen, and I have no idea why. And I am old man. I'm 76, and I'm getting tired. This is my 4th week, of which I've got a class tomorrow to teach, and I can't get there from here. I don't understand what's going on, or the resistance time. I'm ready to give up and just walk away from it. And the only reason I don't is because someone else, like Cliff High and others, have told me that if I pull this off, don't give up, there'll be no more wars. I don't know what to do. I'm getting mixed information from so many different directions. I'm worn out, and this morning before I went on air, I threw up, and I'm sick. And I'm worn out like you were a couple of weeks ago. Well, here I am. And I am still last man standing because I am trying to distinguish the difference between intent and purpose. Now, the reason you're aging right now, you and me, is because you can't get those trace minerals, that 72 minerals, across the blood-brain barrier so that your brain can regenerate nerve tissue. That is a study I did back in the 70s with Robert O. Becker, a Nobel Prize winner, and I co-authored that paper because I was the one that modeled it. I was the one that had the severed perineal, and I did it. I regenerated nerve tissue because I used the third eye, pineal gland, by a special form of meditation. And those are books that I have written that I can't publish because I don't have any money. I am being stopped at every orifice, and I need help, and I can't, and all these people are volunteering, and it turns out I trust right out of the gate, and I can't do that anymore. I now have to go through what I call third-party interviews where they get detail. I just accept people on their face value. And because I'm a 4-year-old that never became 7, and now I'm 76 years old. Norm Shealy was the only one to try to help me. I have an interview with one of his friends that he thinks is good. I've talked to him several times. I'm excited. But, again, I don't trust anybody anymore, and I don't want to be like that. I don't... I don't know what to do.
Rick, there are a number of us who are in the same boat as you are, and when you say that Norm was the only one that was able to help,
it's something else that's going on that's wrong. And you want to know, did man create AI? How could they if time is not real? This planet is sand. That's silicon. That's different than carbon. And guess what? It's in the same periodic chart just below it, and it has similar properties, but we haven't even discovered those yet. Carbon, when it only has 60 molecules, it bonds to itself. That means you can do nanosheets of one layer atom of carbon as a big sheet. And when you only have 60 of them activated, it forms a ball because it just is the size that it is. Those 60 just form a buckyball. That's the Marshall Papers, and Bob Marshall, when he told Buckminster Fuller as a genius. And that's a book that hasn't been published. I need patrons. I need volunteers. I can't do this alone. And the school is trying to create something for what I consider the single most important natural resource on Earth, and that's our children. And we're logging it like we did the Amazon. And how are we?
That's right. That's right. We're squandering it. We're squandering our children. We have left them.
Who would want to stop me from doing that? I would not have.
Well, maybe that's
anyone. Why?
Maybe that would be the synagogue of Satan. Maybe that would be the synagogue of
in psychology, they call that the projection of the shadow. In order to see evil in someone else, it has to already be present in yourself. That's third generation of imaginal psychology, James Hillman and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Now, guess what? I haven't even talked about absolutes, much less polarization of absolutes with God and the devil. And you know what else? God, my God, is not in conflict with anything. It is man that polarizes them. And everybody's different in the way they see what's good and evil. And that is what made us God's favorite, is choice. Now, you tell me what's wrong with someone calling me working in the devil's work. That person that uses those words and sees me that way, that's the devil.
A term we don't use very often. My parents, my dad's side, his brothers, the word devil would come up, not all the time, but I'd hear it. I don't hear the word devil anymore. Flip Wilson used to say, devil made me do it. We're talking about...
They're pre-Christian, but the devil never even existed until the Catholic Church took the teachings of Jesus and switched them in the opposite direction with Pope Innocent I. And the Constantinople thing that changed the Bibles, it was all political. And what I've done is I'm offering in my download library all the different translations of Bibles. You go make your own decision. And that's the way metaphysics should have been taught when I did it 30 years ago and today. When I have information, what I do is I give that student my sources so they can go and make their own decision rather than my interpretation. And you tell me what's wrong with that, doing that with children.
Rick, I realized that the public training camp was a cesspool. As a computer consultant, I got a chance to sit in on all grades, kindergarten, first grade, all the way through 12th grade. And I got a chance to see what teachers were teaching. And teachers were teaching, I'm talking about public training camp teachers, not all of them, but too many of them, were teaching the children to regurgitate. Listen to what I say, repeat what I say. I'm going to test you on what I said.
Yeah, memorize
and,
it.
If you
That's
don't get
the other part. Memorize.
Yeah.
The problem is,
class, what
Grace
form of
Thorne, when she did her thing with you, none of her teachers and her principal were even interested in what she was doing. And what?
That's right.
What do you think happened to Gunner and some of the other kids that had that moment on national radio as a sixth grader, being able to ask a question that nobody else in her school would even bother to deal with? Now, I'm not saying that Gunner asked the right questions or not, and, you know, his father, I'm wondering why he calls his son Gunner. That was an interesting one. However, that's what is necessary now in a reform of children and the way we're educating. They no longer do home economics. They don't do woodworking shop, automotive. They don't do mechanical drawing. They don't do cursive. They never taught Latin in second grade. They're not doing anything.
So, class, maybe the takeaway from today's broadcast can be summed up in just one sentence. And that one sentence is, if you leave your life up to the government or other large corporations, you've lost your mind. That would be one way of summing up today's class. So, Rick, biochar is obtained by the thermochemical conversion of a biomass substance. We'll call it hardwood, for example, in an environment that has a controlled or a limited amount of oxygen.
You can find it naturally in Russia as shungite. It's not, shungite is a very expensive, just like biochar, that you can make in a campfire using a skillet where you allow the charcoal not to catch on fire, but you can just make it. Now, it's cheap, it's nothing. That's the problem, marketing. And the idea that everything now is made so you have to replace it eventually. Telephones. The only thing I haven't replaced in my home right now is my washer and dryer, like we talked about last week, or weeks ago. I don't know when we talked about that last. I can't even remember anymore. I am, at this moment, under serious attack, making me talking with you on this phone difficult. And when somebody calls me wanting to volunteer, I don't even know who they are. I used to trust. I don't trust anything anymore. And I don't want to be like that. I'm 76 years old, and it turns out people that want to help me have agendas. What do I do now? I want to teach. I don't want to have to interview, and I want to get on with it and pass this on to other people to make it even better than I can.
Well,
and
I think that's wonderful. I think all that's wonderful. I think all that's wonderful. And in my case, I'd like to teach too, but I'm underwater. I'm under siege. But I don't want to get into that. My problems.
Okay.
But what I would like to, I just have one question relating to gardening, and that is: so if carbon can sequester other chemicals, if we put biochar in our gardens, which I've got tons of, literally tons of, in the garden, you can't go more than 2 inches without bumping into a piece of large chunk of biochar in our garden. If carbon can sequester other chemicals, will it sequester the sulfur? Will it sequester the elemental sulfur? Will it sequester the elemental iron? Will it sequester the elemental magnesium and phosphorus and everything else that's beneficial in the soil? Is this a catch-22 using biochar? Or is it, on the whole, really beneficial because it has all these billions of pores that the small biologicals can set up house in and reactivate the soil for the uptake by the plants?
Okay, the correct answer is to all of that, yes, it's good and bad, just like God, just like soil, just like science versus religion. There's two sides of everything we understand because that's the limitation of man, science, and religion, and I don't know. Now, I'm experimenting for myself That's what every one of us should be doing. Have a test that garden next to your real garden and determine for yourself what works for you. And guess what's going to happen next? It is different for each of us. How does that work? Because science and religion isn't the answer. It's you making choice. That's what's real. And science and religion can't get there from here. That's what I have discovered. And so you hear a new item like biochar, put that in a test plot and determine for yourself what you think. We think it's important. We think it's worthy of you testing for yourself. And I don't know.
Well, here's what I do know. My grandparents lived through the first Great Depression, and I, as their grandchild, am living through the second Great Depression, and they grew a garden to survive. That's what they did. A lot of people
Victory
did.
garden, yes.
And, well, they converted their entire backyard, except for a small spot right outside the back door for a little patio. Other than that, it was 100% garden. And they had a sink outside where they processed their produce. They washed it outside in an outside sink. And the water that would be used as from the drain from washing out in this outside sink went back to water the garden. I mean, they were very, very judicious in their actions and very careful with what they did. And they provided for their own survival. And maybe there's some genetics in me that came from them in relation to preparedness. But what I'm trying to do is tell people to grow their own garden, because the last thing I want to do is trust any corporation. No, I trust no corporation. Not one. And I think for my survival, no, my family's. And my family's survival is number one on my list.